All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Reader. So we'll do an AI sector review here. I'll look at SoundHound, BBAI, and NVDA. I'd like to throw in Palantir and maybe even C3 AI if I have the time here. But I will say this. I rarely say go back and watch my old videos, right? But I think if you have the time, it's worth watching my last live video. I'm gonna bookmark it right here at 25 seconds. So on that video, I thought that the quant sector was setting up a little bit better than this AI sector. And I think we saw that come to fruition in the last couple days. Clearly, my timing wasn't off, but hey, at least we were looking in the right place, right? So, part of this video is going to be kind of going back and showing you what I saw and why it kind of happened the way it did, right? From there, I will obviously talk about each of their individual technicals, and I'm going to start with it now, and I'll probably repeat this a couple times. A lot of it, not even a lot, I mean, just NASDAQ is really what's dictating everything around it, right? You hear me say it all the time. The index is like the ocean. And you need to go out and you need to check the weather before you just start sailing, right? And right now, the NASDAQ is just failing this 8 moving average pretty badly, right? We are seeing death cross after death cross. The 50 did a death cross with the 100. It looks like it didn't happen today, but it's going to happen tomorrow. The 20 is going to death cross the 200. Again, when a small one goes above a big one, that's a good golden cross. When a small one goes below a big one, like we're seeing here, that's a death cross. When the 20 goes below the 200, that's a death cross, right? The 8 moving average already death crossed all of them, actually, right? So we are seeing these moving averages just come down. And really, the hope was right here, right? And this is roughly when I made my live video. I was hoping we were finally going to get over the 8. It definitely didn't happen till basically Monday. But like I said, Monday was definitely a doji. Monday was not a good enough to make us believe we wanted it to go. But hey, it definitely decided otherwise, right? When it gaps down as well, I'm not going to say it makes it easier, right? But we closed up here yesterday, right? You can see the green number is 17,800. This morning, right, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, right? We opened basically $300 lower at 17,500, right? So, I wanted that gap up on Monday. We end up seeing the gap down on Tuesday, right? So NASDAQ is hurting, and it's just going to make it that much harder for these to do well, right? From there, like I said, I'll talk about all the technicals. We'll do a quick high level here, right? And I'll get into the details shortly, right? But we saw it on the quant sector too. Normally, when you get to the 200 moving average, you should be able to make a nice, good bounce. And hey, in some ways, this thing went from 8 something to actually a little higher than 10 something, right? You're basically making a 25% move right there, right? You're adding $2 on an $8 stock right there. So it did actually make a pretty nice move, with most of it coming on that Friday, that 16% double digit day right there, right? BBAI, again, the same thing was said on that live video, right? I never say go back and watch my old ones, but if you have the time, my concern with BBAI simply was, if you're going to gap down on earnings that badly, even a good NASDAQ recovery moment's not going to help much here, right? And I mean, you can kind of argue, hey, you went from like 3 to like a nicer, that's not even that much, right? Yeah, that really wasn't much of an uptrend. The I think the earnings reaction was just too fresh. And then very, very, very quickly, right? NASDAQ, very quickly, once NASDAQ made the little bit of a fail today. And look, today's fail, I'm going to get into the deeper thoughts shortly, right? Today's fail isn't a horrible one. This is just the first one right back below it. Not the answer I want to see behind a doji, right? But hey, maybe tomorrow brings us right back up here and we reattempt, right? But the second that this thing did the gap down and then a little bit worse, BBAI accelerated, doing a real bad gap, excuse me, a real bad gap down, and then a little bit more lower from there, right? So BBAI really is playing the way I was unfortunately expecting it to, right? Because you hear me say it all the time. With earnings, we either avoid the avalanche down or we ride that wave up, right? You can just attack actually so many different ways accordingly. But Real quick, let me just at least flash the rest just in case timing, but my goal is to cover everything. Look, NVIDIA is pretty much a mirror image of the indices, and truth be told, NVIDIA made the move I was expecting the indices to do, right? SP 500, I haven't really shown that one, right? But SP 500 had that same, I think maybe right here will make a recovery. The NASDAQ had a little bit of a prettier one, right? But it looked like we were close enough to maybe try to do this little attempt up here. Clearly, it doesn't happen on NASDAQ, but NVIDIA actually starts to make the move a little bit earlier and a little bit louder and actually gets to touch the 20 moving average as opposed to those other two indices that I just showed, right? So, usually NVIDIA, and I keep saying this, right? This is just an opinion, but NVIDIA should be big enough that the indices will follow it. And it's a little interesting to see that this hit that and those didn't. I know a lot of people have been talking about the quantum conference. I don't know if that's happened yet, if it's happening soon or what, but NVIDIA is going to be there. NVIDIA is going to speak. Jensen is going to talk. And again, he's not quite Powell, but, the man gets attention and the man definitely, can do some interesting things, right? So let's see if that conference has happened, or for all I know, it already did, right? And maybe that was a little bit of that boost right there, right? Real quick with Palantir, yeah, this is just like the index, right? It's struggling with the 8 moving average. The 8's getting a lot more horizontal than we are seeing over there. But look, we're seeing a potential death cross again, not the 20 to the 200, but hey, 20 to 50 looks like it's going to happen tomorrow, right? So I would really like Palantir a lot higher than we're at. I think 90 would be beautiful, right? 90 would even get us over this candle right there. But there's a lot of green, green, green to red, red, red. That can green, green, green again. But this really needs to get back over 90, get me back over all the moving averages, and then NASDAQ needs to do the rest. And then lastly, on these opening thoughts, hey, this ain't a bad channel right here. This ain't a bad channel. Again, the issue right now for me is, let me just do QQQ. It's easier to type. It doesn't look like this is trying to make the recovery that it was setting up for, right? But AI has a nice little channel from right here to up here, right? If you can get over the 8, you're going to go to the 20. 20 is actually sitting at basically 24 bucks. I don't even know if this line, let's see where that line came from. No, it's a pretty good line actually. Yeah, I think I would keep this line in my back pocket, that 23, right? I think in the next couple of days between, again, I don't know the math behind these lines, right? But I can see by what, Wednesday, if not Thursday, will probably be 20 moving average at that 23 instead of the 24 I just said, right? But not quite a 10%, but hey, if we can get over the 20, there's a real nice spacing up from there, right? So look, overall, AI doesn't look that great. Unfortunately, AI was just a little bit lagging, like I said, in terms of like the overall sector setup. And then, yeah, NASDAQ just failing kind of hurt, right? So a little bit longer of an opening thoughts, but yeah, not too shabby right there, I think. So before we do go any further and I give you more of my thoughts and opinions, what are we going to do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how these things are setting up short term. We have our 5 moving averages. There are horizontal support and resistance lines that I do draw manually myself. And then when we are done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. Hey, really quickly, if you can, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video online with your friends. Comment good or bad if you disagree. Look, anything you can do helps so much with these YouTube algorithms. But for real, just being here, giving me your time, oh, I'm so grateful for it, all right? So let's quickly look at the quant sector before I go deeper into these, all right? So when we look at Rigotti first, you can see a lot closer to the 3rd. This thing is actually hitting a moving average, holding a moving average, and actually kind of starting that uptrend, right? This was a little bit of also why I thought we were going to do our little pop a lot earlier than I expected, right? But that was already setting up and going up, as opposed to SOUN, which was very flat, right? When you look at QUBT, nope, not this one. This one started a little bit later. That's okay. QBTS, that's another one. This is actually at the 100, at the 100 and able to go. Actually, no, with QUBT, the one thing I do remember, I think I just have to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, we were starting to get a little closer to the 200 moving average right there. And then with Ion Q, it was kind of the same story. So those two weren't doing it. The first two were doing it. And hey, you can kind of see that the gains were there, right? I think the fact that two of them were doing all right as opposed to the other two, at least some of them were setting up, right? Again, when we were looking at SoundHound, this thing was really flat. When we were looking at BBAI, it was actually just coming off of bad earnings, right? So all of a sudden, there's a lot more shakeup in the sector, right? Guard Force AI, pretty much on the flat side, right? Again, I've said I don't think Palantir is even on the same level as SoundHound anymore. I think it's kind of taken a step up. But hey, even this one was pretty much flat instead of starting the uptrend, right? So this whole sector just didn't have that build up strength that at least 50% of the other sector had, right? I don't even actually know what C3AI looks like. Look at this thing. Oh yeah, that's right. We talked about that channel right there, right? But yeah, this thing was pretty much flat as well, right? So the entirety of this sector was that, again, as opposed to at least RGTI kind of starting to look all right. At least QBTS. No, I keep doing that. There's so many. QUBT. No, that wasn't the one. QBTS, was that the one? This was the one. It's not as pretty, but again, you get what I'm saying, right? I thought it was going to be a lot prettier of an example. It's actually not that pretty, but hey, I saw something. I have no idea. Again, so many tickers. I'm going to move on. Sometimes you think I would script this thing, but I don't. So what are we looking at right now? Look, I think the first place I would look is basically 10.15, right? I'm clicking at $10.12, but that's basically 50% of this big candle and at least most of this one, and overall at least comfortably above the 20, right? I actually just clicked on like 1025, 1030. Again, different risk tolerances, risk rewards, right? But I think if we can get into that 1030-ish range, that's where I'll start to think maybe there's a real shot at going to 12 right there, right? Not quite 20%, but kind of most of it, right? Um, Otherwise, I think this is the perfect line. If we lose 933, we're going to be below the 8. We're going to be obviously not get over the 20. And more than likely, we'll be coming right back down to 840 right there, right? I'm not looking at the weekly charts too much in general because I think this is a very much day-to-day kind of market. But look, this thing kind of says the same thing, right? We're actually on the way down to the next moving average, which is around the same place the 200 is, right? So not really aligned with any moving averages on the weekly, but I think kind of the exact same story. You lose this line, you're probably going to go head down there, right? So SoundHound looks pretty black and white to me. I would not touch this thing under 1025, 1015, give or take, something like that. And yeah, if we lose that 9-ish, it's going to be a real quick 8 something, right? So the potential is there for 12, right? But nothing good will happen until QQQ goes up, right? And QQQ is the mirror of NASDAQ, right? NASDAQ needs to go up before you can expect any little ticker to do it, right? BBAI, again, my sincere belief is even in a really good market, okay? Even in the most bullish markets, if you have a bad earnings gap down, you will be an avalanche of bad for basically the next 3 months until the next earning call happens. Now, maybe some good PR will come, maybe some news and like a buy. Like there's so many different things that can happen in that 3 month span, right? But generally speaking, if you have good earnings, you're going to have a real good window to ride until the next earnings. And then obviously the exact opposite, right? Every coin has two sides, right? So when a gap down hits that hard, right? We closed up here and then the next day we start down here and let alone go much lower, right? When you gap down that hard, it's really difficult for any good to happen. It really is. Even when there are moments of the NASDAQ trying to do good, even when we're just going down, and all of a sudden kind of doing that little curve right there that a lot of the other stocks are able to take advantage of, right? What happens is, number one, you can't take as good advantage of it. And then when it gets bad, this thing goes back to worse, right? So you know, it's one of those things where earnings is the place where the CEO and the CFO just give the updates, right? And if the market doesn't like what arguably the two most important people in the company have to say, it's tough. It's really, really tough. And then when you magnify it with just bad indice, oh my goodness, right? So this one's all I'm looking at this point is coming to the 200. It's going to be hard to see anything except for 266. I for sure see that the RSI is really low, but like I'm not even looking at the RSI or MACD. I didn't even mention it on SoundHound. I'm really not doing it on any of them, right? Like these are just silly little indicators, excuse me, right? So when you're in a tough market, all that matters, in my opinion, are moving averages and probably some volume, right? So we're coming to the 200. Hopefully the 200 is a strong line and can give us a little bit of a bounce here. But yeah, if we lose that, it'll quickly fall to a buck 80. All right, so I think it's too early to think that, but it's actually a very real possibility here. All right, let's come to NVIDIA, and like I said it in the beginning of the during the opening thoughts. It is interesting to see NVIDIA actually come all the way up and hit the 20 moving average. It actually opens. You can see it opens up here above it, right? If you look at the second line, we open at 122.70 basically. It was sitting at 122.25 basically, right? So we open above it. We obviously close below it. But hey, NASDAQ never even comes close to the 20 moving average, right? S&P 500 never even comes close to the 20 moving average. And hey, even the Dow Jones never comes close to the 20 moving average, right? So it's actually cool to see NVIDIA be a little bit of an anomaly right there, right? But man, we couldn't get back over the 20. I expect us to go back under the 8. I'm seeing a lot of moving averages heading down. The 50 is probably going to death cross the 20. I mean, sorry, the 200 in the next couple days, right? So Nvidia's looking tough, right? It looks like Nvidia's probably going to come back to 110. Man, I got to draw some lines. Where are you? I wouldn't use you. I would use that. All right, I think this is coming to 110. Hopefully 110 holds. If 110 doesn't hold, I would put 94. I'm going to basically ignore these two candles and that bottom right there. I might be wrong and maybe 101 is the better line, but I think to me, you're probably going to quickly fall to 94 if we lose that 110 right there, right? Again, I'm not looking at the weekly. I'm not looking at the MACD and the RSI. I'm barely talking about volume right now, right? Because if you can't even get over two of the five moving averages, less than 50% of them, if you're not even over two of the five moving averages, how can I even look at the other things, right? It's tough to, especially knowing and magnifying it with NASDAQ being under all five at the moment, right? So, yeah, we'll quickly look at Palantir and C3AI. I basically said it in the opening thoughts. This thing needs to get over 90, right? Getting over 90 will put me over this candle right here. It'll nicely put me over the 20 and the 50. Maybe you can make the argument that like 88.50 is a good number. I think that's just a little too close. I think I'd at least want 89 instead of 90. But I just need to believe that we're over all five, right? And hey, Palantir is actually the nicest one of this group. This one is actually physically over three of the five, as opposed to every other one in this group that's been under all of them or only holding one of the two, right? So, or one of the five, right? So Palantir actually just by the lines is doing the best, but you know, to me, I still have to respect the NASDAQ, right? So really bad things will happen under 75. Make sure that this does not lose 75, right? Because from there you can see it. It's a fast and hard channel down to 50 in a lot of green, green, green. That could be a fast red, 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 right? So keep that 75 number in your back pocket. You cannot lose 75 on Palantir, okay? And then last but not least, C3AI. Again, I think that there's actually a channel here that makes that, oh, I think there's maybe a path here to take this to 23, 24 bucks. I can tell I really need water and I'm losing my breath here. So I'm going to kind of cut it short right there. But if this can get over 24 bucks, that's actually the better trade and actually has a good shot at 29. All right. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, hey, really quick. I'm starting to mail out chart reader hats. If you've stayed all the way to the end so far, thank you so much, obviously. But send me an email. Contact us at chartreaders.com. Yo, I will cover shipping for sure. I'm doing the domestic people first. So if you're in the US, it's going to be easier. But if you're in Canada, if you're across the pond, let me know you're at least interested. I've got, I think, like 25 more to give away immediately. I would love for you to wear and rock the hat. All right. So I'll totally pay for all of it. Just like I said, let me know if you're interested. Okay. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions, even if you disagree. Oh, I appreciate you so, so much.